All right, welcome to the V.O.C. live show 2 here. Trying to get a little technical, figuring some things out. Welcome back to the program. It was either this music called Night Driving or Rock.
I like this Night Driving.
Dramatic cutoff.
This is what rock sounds like. I don't know if we're there.
I
don't know if we're there yet. I just figured out something that yet this program posts to Facebook automatically for me. We'll get out of that. It puts it on private, so everybody.
I tried to find it.
Yeah. So it's on Facebook now. We weren't last week, but I guess we are this week. So if you're joining from the Facebook universe, how's it going? My name is Caleb. I'm here with Trevor and Jerry. On this week's show, we are going to be doing, I think, just an NFL free agency quick cap, because, the biggest thing is obviously March Madness, the tournament, because it is March. In some conferences like the SEC, it just means more. So we're going to get into that. So I think first, I made a couple graphics here, starting with some of the biggest spenders, I would say, from free agency. We can start with a team that we talked about last week here, being the Seattle Seahawks, them trading Geno Smith, trading DK Metcalf. Everybody's like, what they're going to do? How's it going to happen? Well, they retooled. They go out and get Sam Darnold, which I think was on a very good deal. He's younger than Geno Smith and cheaper. Cooper Kupp, I don't fully understand it. Dexter Lawrence said he was never going to win in Dallas, which made a lot of people mad. And look where he's at now.
I still don't get it. I know that was my whole hot take last week, which is I don't know what Seattle's doing. I still really don't. I'm not as high on Sam Darnold as you probably guys are. I think last year, O'Connor's a really good play caller that takes advantage of his QBs very, very well. That's why they haven't been shopping as heavy. They believe in J.J. McCarthy, which should tell you something. It's not like J.J. McCarthy's God. He barely threw the ball at Michigan. I do like the Cooper deal a bit because I think Cooper's a really, really good receiver. And if you're going to get him or Metcalf, okay, so be it. But Sam Darnold also had a great offensive line. And I don't really think it's fair to be like, oh, man, he had this great season. He's a little cheaper. But, yeah, everything around him is a little cheaper. So I still don't get it because I think the core there is good. I get the idea of going a little younger, especially at QB, but still you let Geno go for a fourth, so you get a quarterback that had a career season with a great offensive line and a really, really good head coach that everyone agrees is a really, really good offensive coach. So hopefully I'm wrong on that fact because Sam Darnold's a cool story, and any guy who does good after the Jets is funny, just how it goes. But I still don't see it because you had that core there that kind of all understood each other. It's like, we can save a couple bucks, but you got I want to say Walmart versions, but you got the Target versions. A little bit nicer, but it's not name brand. It's at least how I'm seeing it. Cooper Kupp, I don't really want to put in the spotlight, especially, but I'm not sure if I really get it. 8-8, here we come.
Yeah, I think that it relies kind of on Cooper Kupp's health or their success. That's not something I would necessarily bet on. Cooper Kupp being healthy. But we'll see, I guess. Sam Darnold, too. I'm kind of curious. Do you think they're going to try to go and, get somebody in the draft, and then this is like a Sam Darnold, J.J. McCarthy situation again, or?
I think it probably depends on if somebody falls or if a wide receiver is there that they want, honestly. I think the biggest thing with the Sam Darnold, it's like I'm not the highest on Sam Darnold. I think he's an okay quarterback. I mean, he lost himself probably easily $100 million looking at his contract now in the last month. But I think Geno wanted more money than Sam Darnold, and I don't think that there's that much of a difference. So I think the Seahawks said, okay, if we can go cheaper, go younger, and gain a pick, I think we'll do it. And they have a plan clearly, but to them to draft a quarterback, I don't know. I think it depends on if Shador fell to 18 where they're at, maybe. But it's very interesting of how some of these teams have thought. Like this next team I'll bring up here, in the Patriots, who just went out and just spent money like crazy. Carlton Davis, I think Robert Spillane is his guy's name. He's a linebacker from the Raiders. Milton Williams, who the Panthers thought they had, and then he was gone. And then Morgan Moses from the Jets to play tackle. So the Patriots looked at it and said we need to change culturally, and I think they have a plan. Now, sometimes spending in free agency isn't always the right thing to do sometimes, but with Vrabel, I think it'll be interesting to see how they kind of play on the field after kind of winning in the offseason, I would say.
I think it all comes down to the fact it's Vrabel. That's all it is. This is the guy who's a Patriots guy through and through, all those things, all those cliches, and also been a very successful head coach. So it's not like he has a track record. You look at the Titans now. I think if you need any proof that he's not bad at what he does, look at the Titans currently. Will Levis eats mayonnaise at a weird pace with bananas. And that's the most notable fact about that team. Where, if they're going to bring in a guy like Vrabel, if they're going to go and commit, that he's going to require those things as well, because he's earned that right to say, I'm not going to sit here and can try to retool for 5 years and slowly build through. I guarantee you when he was in those meetings, he goes, I know you guys want me, but if you're going to do this, we're going to move. Will it be guaranteed success? Who knows? Again, free agency can be really hit or miss, like you said, Caleb, but this is the Vrabel effect right in front of us, which is we will commit because we have him.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's a lot of money. I mean, Milton Williams is a great player. I think one of the more underrated players. I don't think a lot of people know who he is per se, but I mean, for the Eagles, he was very good. Now, could that be because that defensive line was also good? I think that's always the concern when you go out and get a guy like that and spend that much money, because it's he's a great player, but could he have been elevated even more just based off of what he was around, which was the best defensive line in the NFL? All right, so moving on now, we'll go to the Super Bowl Bears. That's going to happen. That's a fact.
I hope you're right. I really hope you're right.
I think this wasn't so much Ryan Poles having a plan. This was Ben Johnson being like, this is what I want, and this is going to happen. We talked about Joe Thuney last week. Jonah Jackson to play the other guard. The one that concerns me the most with the Bears is the Grady Jarrett thing, but you get him for 3 years. He's older. If he's not good after a year, you cut him anyways. But you continue to build the offensive line. They get a young edge rusher whose name I'm not going to try and pronounce because I do not want to end up somewhere that's not America.
I mean, if you mispronounce it, you'd probably be better off.
His name,
You don't do it. I'm not trying to put you up to it. I'm really not, but I think your logic here is not as sound as you think.
I think it's great logic. So what are you guys' thoughts on the Bears being Super Bowl champions next year?
I think they did exactly what they needed to do, which was fortify their offensive line. Going and getting these guys definitely shows that they kind of saw where their weakness was, especially with protecting their franchise guy, right? And I think they did exactly what they needed to do on the offensive line. I really like what the Bears have done this offseason with getting these guys.
I've never felt more hurt as a Bears fan. I think that's what's made this offseason so much fun, is it's like every Bears fan I know, that includes Caleb, goes, we need an offensive line. Our offensive line's terrible. What have we done in free agency? Got a bunch of good offensive linemen. That never happens with Bears free agency. It's always some weird pickup or an overpay that's either really fun, like every once in a while, or like, why did we do that? So this has been the first time in a while I've gone like, okay, the thing that was a problem, they just went out and fixed it. So that's fun. If you're a true Bears fan, you're still scared out of your mind because success doesn't happen often. And when it does, it still hurts. But this has been, for the first time in a while, the Bears have done the things that make people really excited. They got a head coach that fans wanted, was the guy on a lot of people's boards when you asked most majority of the teams that were in the same spot as the Bears looking for a head coach. Ben Johnson was the name. Maybe the Patriots are the one that you say no because of Vrabel, right? But that's the name that was on everyone's board. The Bears got him. The Bears had a very specific problem. They got the things to fix it. That doesn't happen back to back. That's really exciting, and that's why this graphic, I'm not just going to be like, oh my God, no way. I can buy into it. Partially just because I want to have happy days, but if they've done the things that they needed to do, that doesn't happen often, and that can be celebrated.
I mean, that's what happens when you get a legit head coach that knows what they're doing, and they don't just get some floor mat that gets walked on. He has a clear plan. And Deo Gingbo.
Well, it's nice knowing
Nailed
you, Caleb.
it.
Just because you said it, you're going to go somewhere else. It was nice knowing you.
And then Drew Dahlman, I forgot his name, plays center there. But no, I think it was very good. They understood what the plan was, and they got it. This next one is they're older pass rushers, not one because he had a great Super Bowl, but pass rushers I think can make a big impact. I love Bosa to the Bills. I think it's very underrated. They cut Von Miller and got Bosa. I think it's very good. Josh Sweat to the Cardinals. He reconnects with his old defensive coordinator out there in Arizona. And then Hassan Reddick, who was like in an argument with the Jets, so technically he's not as old as his age is because he didn't play as much to the Bucs. I really like those deals. I think, the Bills have kind of gone in on the all-in. We need to tool as much. I think it works for the defensive side. Cardinals, I don't understand the Cardinals. They're one of those franchises that I don't put much effort into or thought into because it's one of those teams that's either going to be a playoff team or they're picking in the top 5. And the Bucs, in a division that's very winnable, they continue to build on top of what they already have. I like it a lot.
Yeah, it kind of breaks my heart seeing Josh Sweat go, but I think that's a great pickup for the Cardinals. I don't know if that's necessarily what they need, but I think if you need an edge rusher who can get to the quarterback, I think Josh Sweat is perfect, about as good as you can get in this free agency.
I love the Bills being all in because you have so many franchises. Earlier we were talking about the Seahawks, and it's like we don't know what they're doing. The Seahawks feel like a perennial 8-8 team, right? And I don't want to overclaim on a team that's out there. Where the Bills are like, we're going to try to either win a Super Bowl or be bad.
Yeah.
And that mediocrity spot, which Cardinals, right in the middle of this graphic, right, always seem to find their way just in the middle of that. That's a worse place to be in. It is worse than just being terrible, right? You could lie to yourself for the future. So I love seeing a team like the Bills say, we're going to try and go all out. That doesn't happen often. You have franchises who try to just be good enough so GMs don't get fired, people don't get moved. No, we're swinging for the fences. So I hope that pays off because you don't get that often. It also means Sean McDermott might get fired at the end of the year if they don't do it. But that has not been said for what, X amount of years now. So.
Well, I think you have like these teams in the Bills and the Ravens who looked like I think they had a fear of the Chiefs, and then they saw what happened to the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. And then they were like, oh, no, like we can actually beat them. They are a beatable team. They're not as crazy or as great as everybody thinks that they are. And so I think you have, the Bills being like, okay, we can get rid of Von Miller, get a little younger, get better in Bosa right now. It's a great move. But yeah, no, you have these teams that you don't understand. They're just trying to keep jobs and just trying to tread water. But it's like, try. You're close. If you add a piece like Bosa, he could put you over the top. All right, moving on to the last NFL graphic here. Quarterback dominoes. Sam Darnold was, I think, the first domino because you didn't really know exactly what was going to happen. Was Minnesota going to resign him? Were they not? And then Justin Fields to the Jets, where it was reported that the Steelers wanted him back. He didn't want to go back. I get it. Because you benched him for a 35-year-old. And then now you have this crazy graphic. I put together the Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers stuff because you basically have one team in the Browns that likes Russell Wilson, but depending on what happens with Aaron Rodgers and where he goes, he could go there, he could not. You have two teams buying for both of them in the Steelers and the Giants, which I think is very interesting. And then you have this sleeper team down here for Aaron Rodgers and the Vikings, to where supposedly that's where Aaron Rodgers wants to go. And there's another report today, I think, from Diana Rossini that says if Aaron Rodgers doesn't get an offer from the Vikings, he may just retire altogether. And I don't blame him for that because out of these teams, the Vikings are the better team. And it's funny, but you do follow in the Brett Favre footsteps of going to the same teams. And you get back at the Packers and you are with a great coach, great receivers. You go out one last ride. And they don't need you to be there, your savior, because if you don't play good, they'll just put J.J. McCarthy in.
I think you worry about with Aaron Rodgers is every place he leaves, he doesn't get high reviews, and so while on paper it makes so much sense to be like, why not take a swing at a Hall of Fame quarterback who has dominated this division before And again, if they don't work out, you have a young guy that you wanted, that you went out of your way to pick. Sure, right? But look at the messes or the lack of love, I should say, that he's gotten from both Green Bay and now New York. Now, granted, New York, who knows? Life goes. What happens with the Jets, I'll never truly understand. I hope Justin Fields breaks that mold. I like him as a QB. I hope Caleb Williams obviously does well. That
They
those
go
two
off
names
Madden,
always
Jerry.
wild.
They go off of Madden.
But I think out of just like Justin Fields didn't always have the greatest time in Chicago, but he was fun while he was there. So I'll root for him, right? But the fact that with Aaron Rodgers, I don't know, because every place he goes, it causes more problems than good. Even when they were winning in Green Bay, it was a problem. That's all Green Bay has. What else do you do in Green Bay, and how are you not like there? That's all they do. Also, I'll make this quick. You know how great a quarterback room would be with Russell Wilson and Deshaun Watson?
But Russell Wilson's a change. I mean, Deshaun Watson's a change man. He is now engaged as of today.
That's just a great quarterback room. Or if we got the real chaos, if we just put this graphic with no context, and Aaron Rodgers, Deshaun Watson quarterback room.
I don't think that would happen, but it would be interesting. No, I mean, it is like, would I want Aaron Rodgers? No, but it could also be a change in saying that he tried to get his things done in Green Bay. That's why he wanted to leave, because they wouldn't listen to him, and they drafted Jordan Love. The Jets, he tried, but it didn't work. So I mean, it's interesting. Would I want either of these guys, and Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers? No, I'd much rather just draft like somebody in the draft in the second round and just let them play. But you have these teams that are desperate. They're trying to get a winning record and be mediocre, like we've talked about. Like the Steelers they don't care as long as Mike Tomlin has a winning record and they make the playoffs, they're fine. And they believe Aaron Rodgers can do that. Now, if they don't get Aaron Rodgers, I perceive Russell Wilson going back there. So it's just a big domino effect.
Yeah, I think if Aaron Rodgers goes to the Vikings, I don't see that happening, just because I think at the beginning of last year, the Vikings were riding pretty high on J.J. McCarthy, and to go get someone like Aaron Rodgers kind of defeats that purpose, right? This was going to be a guy that we drafted early. We saw him as maybe a franchise quarterback, and to just take this person who is pretty corrosive to every team he goes to, like Jerry said, there's not many good reviews on Aaron Rodgers. So I don't know. I think it defeats the purpose. So if it comes to going to the Vikings or retiring, I can see him retiring. Maybe he's not done. Maybe he, retires for a year, comes back to a team that needs him. But I don't see him going to the Vikings. I think they trust what they have in J.J. McCarthy, and I think they like that there. And honestly, if I was the Vikings, I wouldn't want him either.
I mean, you guys are selling over here, so I'm going to buy. I'm going to buy.
Ask Zach Wilson about how it feels to have Aaron Rodgers in your quarterback room.
I think he's got one more good year, and I think going to Minnesota, if he goes to Minnesota, if I'm him, I go Minnesota or retire as well. But look, you get one more year. You don't really know what you fully have in J.J. McCarthy. You let him play in the preseason. If I could see this happening. They don't sign Aaron Rodgers now. They wait. J.J. McCarthy plays in the preseason, say his knee's still a little messed up, or he's not playing as great. Then they sign Aaron Rodgers. That's what I could see happening. And I think maybe that's what Aaron Rodgers is waiting for. So it wouldn't be shocked. I mean, the problem is you're on his timeline, and you have no idea how long that's going to be. Because he's on the beach in Malibu with his headphones and like a blanket.
I saw that, yeah.
And who knows? I think he was listening to our show. That's what I personally think.
Yeah.
He looked like a guy that listened to our show. Just
Yeah.
like, what's going on, technical issues. But
I would love to see Aaron Rodgers and Mike Tomlin interacting.
It would be interesting.
I think that'd be good media.
I mean, he's done it before at Divas, so who knows what he can do again. All right, so now we will segue into something that we are all buying on in this March. It is March Madness. The bracket has been revealed. Auburn was the number 1 overall seed, kind of limped into the tournament, I would say. The Tennessee Vols, by the way, almost won the SEC championship. They beat Auburn. You guys wanted to talk like I was crazy last week, and look at me now. Duke is also a 1 seed. Florida is also the other 1 seed after winning the SEC, and the Houston Cougars, who won the Big 12. I mean, people are gonna like cry over like, oh, this team didn't get it. I don't care when I get to 68 teams. Like, I really don't, because at the end of the day, I believe like 10 teams are gonna have like a true shot of winning it. But yeah, I mean, we can sit here and go through this. Do we want to like fill out a bracket or whatnot, or kind of go through games? Doesn't matter to me.
I think we go through the best games. This thing came out an hour ago. Like I'm not gonna act like I'm ready to fill one out mentally, but there are so many interesting matchups here within each group that not only will shape the tournament, but I find so fascinating. So, do we want to start with Auburn, like that side of the bracket, the south side with Auburn, number 1 seed?
Yeah. Let me see if I can pull it up here. Give me a second here, Jerry.
I'm saving us future embarrassment
trying
for
to
when all these.
trying to produce and be the star of this show here, Jerry. It's kind of tough.
Don't get me started. I understand.
All right, so we will look at this. Can everybody see this?
Yep.
Auburn.
I got eyes on it.
I think that they play one of the play-in teams.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Is it Alabama State, St. Francis, maybe? Yep, that's it.
Yep.
Yeah, so I can just go through, and then if something pokes your guys' interest in the South region here, then we will stop. Louisville, Creighton.
That's interesting. That's so interesting.
I saw someone on Twitter really upset that Louisville was at 8. I'm not like the huge like college basketball guy, but they're very adamant that they thought they should have been seated higher.
What happens if I click on this game? Oh, right here. Here we go.
Whoa.
This is getting fancy.
Probably just messed up the entire thing. Yeah, I mean, I like the seeding. I don't know. I don't get into all that. I watched Creighton play in the Big East Championship because I prefer the Big East basketball compared to other conferences. They look good. I would probably pick Creighton to beat Louisville. That's just me. But I don't really know. But I think it'll be an interesting game. Louisville, it's their first year with their head coach, right?
With Pat Kelsey. I think what shocked people about Louisville being an 8, Louisville's resume is not that good. But it's the fact
ACC hasn't been good.
Exactly. The ACC this year only had 4 bids. The SEC, if I remember, had 14. Yeah. That feels extremely backwards. Not that I expect the ACC to have 14 bids. The SEC is breaking a literal record with that. But that, because this came out so early, because the South was the first bracket revealed, it set a tone for what the ACC or lack thereof would look like. Because that is that team, without Cooper Flagg at least, took Duke to the wire and lost to Duke by 10, has been one of the top teams in the ACC. So it kind of just shows you how quickly the tides have shifted. They've been a very good story. They're the team that is last year was terrible. Blue blood program that has been wayward, been wayward for years. Now they're back under a new
curse
coach.
Of Rick Pitino.
Well, shockingly, he's still a higher seed, but now they're finding back form and this, all that. So they've got that nice, 5,000 page article in the Athletic, or 5,000 word article in the Athletic. That's really nice. And oh my God, this and that. They weren't impressive in the title game. I think they would have moved up a fair bit. Obviously, beating Duke, granted without a star player, would have been huge. But I think the more the storyline from this is Louisville being an 8 shows you how weak the committee thought the ACC was, even though they let UNC in. And I know we don't want to get into the in and out, but 4 ACC teams in March Madness is insane in its own way. And I think that was more of the intrigue with them being an 8 seed. Means that everyone else, your Clemsons and Duke, I forget who else, really got, in UNC, we're very low. Then we can go right down to Michigan, UC San Diego. Michigan as a 5 seed after beating Wisconsin, which is across here on the East, as a 3 seed. Hilarious.
I think this is an upset.
It can be an upset. Both A&M Yale, Michigan, UC, San Diego can be upsets, but it has become a funny theme of the Big Ten tournament championship means nothing. And if you want a prime example, Michigan goes down to the wire, absolutely stopped a hot Wisconsin offense, held them to under 55 points, and are 2 seeds lower. And that means at least like almost 8 teams. They thought 8 teams were between those two that were better. That's hilarious to me.
Well, it also asks how low was Michigan before they won that game?
I don't know.
Were they an 8 or a 9 or a 7? Like, I think that like some of the seeding is kind of wonky. I guess like, yeah, Michigan being a 5, winning probably the second best conference, I would argue, in the country is interesting. But I honestly, what I think they probably weighed is how Michigan State, who won the regular season Big Ten, beat Michigan twice. I feel like they kind of weighed that. But I don't know. You also have to see it on how they're playing now, and they just won the Big Ten. So I mean, like, I really don't care what happens to Michigan if they lose in the first round. It'd make me very
really
happy,
no way.
But
that I found was really funny, especially because that was the first bracket reveal. So it's like, okay, you see Michigan 5, cool, whatever, take that for what you will. And later in the broadcast, Wisconsin as a 3. And to Michigan's credit, this again good upset pick both here with Michigan, UC San Diego, and A&M and Yale. That's one that will get a lot of play. But to see Michigan clamp the hell out of Wisconsin, this offensive team that's been very fast paced, scoring a lot of buckets, and then be like, nah, you're like 18. You are so much worse, even though you just beat them, is objectively funny, even if there is a real logic behind it.
No, I mean it's just it is wonky. I mean, I think Oregon's also a 5 seed. Like that's goofy to me.
Very goofy.
So you're telling me that Oregon is the same as Michigan? They're not. Yeah, so I think Texas A&M, Yale. I think Yale made it last year, beat Auburn last year, so they got some experience there. I think to win that game. Ole Miss plays one of the play-ins. San Diego State or North Carolina. That'll be interesting. I could definitely see one of those two teams winning that game. Iowa State, Lipscomb. I guess one of Iowa State's best players is I don't think I heard him in the first round, probably second round. Marquette, New Mexico. I think Patino coaches New Mexico.
Yeah, that's a Shaka Smart team. Marquette has not been looking good recently.
No,
very favorable draw here for Michigan State. Not to hype you up a little bit more, Caleb, but
no, I feel good. You can see the smile on my face.
And Iowa State with the star player down and / getting healthy, helpful there. Marquette not playing their best basketball. New Mexico is a good little team. Yeah, that's another Patino coached squad. But Marquette might be able to run through that. And then, of course, Michigan State playing Bryant is objectively very cool and fun. So take that for what you will. But that was a very favorable draw for Michigan State. I cannot say for their number 1 team in Auburn itself, because Louisville Creighton's tough. Even if you get through, unless those 2 upsets that we talked about earlier, Michigan State's and UC San Diego or Yale go through, that's a tough second round matchup, whoever goes through. So you're hoping that you could get to the Sweet 16 where one of those 2 juggernauts gets knocked off. The only final note I have here is A&M's a really good offensive rebounding team, which is why I don't like that upset pick as much. Rebounding is really, really key, obviously, and winning that battle can be huge. And they've got some good guards who are big-time players. And that's kind of what you want to look for. At least I look for when you're looking at teams is, do you have a guy that's like, oh yeah, I dropped 23 a night in my conference? You could, those type of guys can carry you. That's why when you talked about Tennessee earlier, which we'll talk about a little bit more. Now, I liked them more in the tournament than the SEC tournament, but A&M could be a tough matchup. But a fun first round, good for Michigan State, not as good for the number 1 seed overall.
Well,
in Auburn.
I mean, I'm not going to be a shocker here when I say this. I think Michigan State makes it to the Final Four. I thought that no matter what the bracket looked like, it's all about guard play, coaching, their ability. Wisconsin, I mean, the Big Ten tournament with Michigan State, I wasn't too concerned because they just played Wisconsin like a week and a half ago and held them pretty good. I knew they were not going to be able to win everything going into the tournament. But I think what could help them, and I think hurt Auburn did last year's guard play. Yes, their best player is a big. Yes, he's a great player in Janai Broom. He really is. But this tournament comes down to guard play and can you control the game? And that's why I don't necessarily like Auburn to make it to the Final Four. I like Michigan State too because they have multiple guard play to make it there. So I think now that we went to the South, we'll go through and kind of what we think who makes the Final Four. I'm going to pick Michigan State. Trevor, who do you think is going to win the South region and make it to the Final Four?
Auburn.
Auburn. This guy keeps riding Auburn.
I will ride Michigan State here.
Okay.
The only rebuttal for Auburn would be Taj Pettiford. He is a player, and he is one of those guard guys. I liked him a lot throughout the season. He's a big shot guy. The thing about Auburn that I worry about, and I can see them even knocking out before you get into your Elite Eight, is if they go down, their body language is not good. And I know that seems very coach speaky, and oh, this guy really knows ball. But in each one of their losses, they just look so sad, and they look so defeated. And that's not going to be good if you're running into any team that you haven't seen often. Which you could say that about Louisville Creighton if an A&M could help because they have the game plan.
Yeah.
But like, let's say Michigan runs through here and Michigan gets a decent little lead. Auburn can implode quickly because they've done that before, and that they're not good at responding. So that's the one thing that worries me about them more, where Michigan State all year has just been annoying. They say, you know what? We'll hit back. We'll keep playing. Doesn't matter if we're down 8, 18, or 2. We play the same. And that's why I like them more in the Final Four. Very even-keeled, consistent. Richardson is a spark plug and has turned into a star. I think he can really drag them over the edge because they didn't have him as much early in the season. He's come alive. He's one of those guys that can really change a game.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, watching Creighton I want to say I watched their last 3 games, I want to say. I could see them beating Auburn in the second round. Like, seriously. Just because of what they have and kind of how they play. With their guard play and their big man down low, who it feels like blocks 4 or 5 shots a game. So it could be interesting. All right, moving now to, I guess we'll go down to the West region where Florida is the number 1 overall seed. I think that this region is pretty tough, I would say. Maybe just looking at it, maybe the toughest. I could be wrong. But so Florida, if they win, which we all think that they will against the 16 seed Norfolk State, would have to play either UConn or Oklahoma. That's pretty tough.
Oklahoma is very beatable. UConn has the talent. How much it depends how much you take in form. Right now, Florida is hot. They look like one of the best teams in the country. They've earned that number 1 seed. And I think honestly, if they didn't have that type of tournament performance, they're not a number 1 seed. But they have gotten the most out of their last month. Can you continue that? That is, the big tournaments, right? Your conference tournaments can obviously help your seeding a lot, but you're now taking a couple days off. Instead of playing every day and having that flow, having that rhythm, how do you respond? I can see them getting a little ugly against Norfolk State, rocking out solid, but UConn can be a buzzsaw because they have those 5-star guys that haven't played up to it yet. Now, that's a little bit of Dan Hurley just yelling as much as he can at the world, right? I think Oklahoma is really reliant on too much on Fierce, their freshman guard, who is very, very good. And Porter Mosier is a really good coach and will give them a good game, but I don't like that as much because they don't have as many other pieces. And also, again, let's say Oklahoma takes out Florida already has the game plan. When you're looking at these upsets, you want to find these groups where these guys haven't seen each other or they play very different. Florida, Oklahoma benefits Florida more. They have the game plan. They've seen each other. They know what they look like, which I think makes that an easier matchup, not a harder matchup in comparison to a UConn. Memphis is fun. This is another every 5 to 12 game, right? That's your upset pick.
Yeah.
I think Memphis is stronger than a lot of people are giving credit for because they just ran through the AAC, no problem. Maryland looked really good in the tournament. I liked how they came back, even though they lost against Michigan. I like how they fought back. Then this second half of the bracket, oh my God. Missouri, Drake, that's going to be an upset pick because Drake plays slow, Missouri plays fast. Bill Self, John Calipari, Rick Pitino.
Dude, it's great. It's like it's almost like this bracket is happening in like the 2000s. It's like we went old school. You have Kansas versus Arkansas. Nobody's talking about that one. Okay, that's the biggest one there.
That one came up in my group chat immediately. Not even just the name battle, because that was a bowl game I think 2 years ago as well. So that rename the name. For Arkansas, this is a big one if they want to keep their name. But like That's like that three. That I don't think you've had in recent memory a better draw for coaching in terms of name, profile, and arguable success in the first two rounds. Like you're talking multiple national titles, guys who've been to the that have been consistently successful in every place they go, all meeting up early. Like you've talked about the Elite Eight, Final Four. Again, this is a first round matchup. Is a Bill Self led team versus a John Calipari led team.
Yeah.
What?
I mean, I want to see Arkansas win and St. John's win just so we can see Cal versus Rick Pitino white suit off contest. Because I think that they would do it. But yeah, I mean, it's big. This tournament comes down to guard play and coaching, and in this bottom half of the bracket here, you have that with all three teams. So that will be very interesting because, you winning the Kansas-Arkansas game can either really help you against St. John's or either really hurt you depending on, how that game is played.
St. John's is just hot. That's fun. Also, the sleeper here is if Missouri gets through Drake, Mizzou Texas Tech could be a very, very interesting game. Texas Tech is very streaky. The Missouri matchup, as the wonderful Mizzou grad who lives in now the high crime city of St. Louis, right? That's a good stylistic battle. A very slow playing Drake who has been very successful all year, running up against a team that likes to pressure a lot in Mizzou. That's going to be one of your really popular picks because of that, and that totally makes sense. But if Mizzou's to get through that, I could see them sneaking to the Sweet 16, which that could be very favorable, even if they run up against St. John's, because they beat Kansas and Arkansas, right? And unless Omaha does the funniest thing possible and blows up that whole coaching quadrant, you've beaten those two teams. You have the vision on either of them. And I think Texas Tech is a beatable team. Now, of course, I say that, and every year Texas Tech ends up in the Elite Eight somehow, and you're just like, oh, sure. But this is a lot of great coaching, but can be very sneaky. And they're the number 1 team, if I remember correctly, it was Florida. And they've gotten, I think, the toughest draw, that means the committee did a good job. If this feels like the hardest, deepest part of the bracket that they're in. Same for St. John's. I think they were the the worst second seed.
Which I don't agree with that, but
I can see why. It's just you have to play, the Big East conference is not what it used to be. And I think that's tough.
I get it, but I think like right now, if they played Michigan State, I think they'd beat them. If they played Alabama right now, I think they'd beat them. I don't think they'd beat Tennessee, but I think they'd beat those other two teams.
I could see that. We can talk about those teams a little bit more too, but that's a very tough part of the bracket. And that's where your chaos will really ensue, especially when Grand Canyon beats Maryland, just to really cause chaos.
All right, so I will pick. This is tough. Because Florida's really good right now. I also kind of feel like I've watched St. John's the last couple of days, and I really like them and how their defense plays. And I just kind of want to ride with it. So I'm going to pick St. John's to win the West.
I am stuck between UConn and St. John's. What I have learned from years prior is to not bet against UConn and Coach Hurley in March. So I am going to go UConn to win the West.
Wow, that's a big one there.
Yeah.
A little 8-seed action there.
Mm-hmm.
I'll go a little lower. I'm going to say Memphis gets unscathed a lot, gets hot at the right time, and sneaks through.
Because I like it. This is fire. This, you know what? If people are here watching, this is what you came to see.
I like their path a lot. Colorado State, yeah, they've been warm, but sure. Think about Maryland's very beatable. Whoever comes out of that Florida, UConn, Oklahoma, and Norfolk State, funny sideline of Norfolk State and Missouri being in the same bracket again. Well, whoever comes out of that's gonna be beaten up. And a team like Memphis, you can run into two teams there that are very beatable, and you're running, and whoever comes out of that side of both sides is getting their butt whooped. So a team that gets a little easier of a path, maybe one upset, could go way farther than any of us predict, just because there's so many good teams hiding in the West.
Penny Hardaway's still the coach, right? Or is he not?
Yes.
All right. So as long as we see Lil Penny commercials, we'll be good. That's all I care
There
about.
it is, time, by the way.
That's all I care about. All right, moving on to the East. The team that everybody hates, Duke, is the number 1 overall seed in that region there. Kind of limping into the tournament, literally limping into the tournament, as their best player, Cooper Flagg, is kind of hurt right now. I think he'll be fine for the tournament. They sat him out of the ACC tournament, which, I mean, the ACC was so bad they could win it going away, which they basically did. This bracket, like I said, Oregon being a 5 is kind of interesting to me. Moving down the bracket here, Arizona, I don't trust in March. Never have, never will. ECU's interesting. Wisconsin played an ugly game today, and I think they have a little bit more. St. Mary's Vanderbilt, I think that could be one of the better games of the first round that nobody kind of understands, to be honest with you. And then Alabama playing Robert Morris. Didn't know that one man was in the tournament himself.
God. The sneaky one here is Mississippi State Baylor in that 8-9 game. Are two very talented teams. You want to talk about good coaching? Mississippi State, I think, is more talented than Baylor's this year. But Scott Drew has done it, has gone all the way. And that does mean something. And whoever Duke runs into in that 116 game, coming off of this, these are two teams that are hard to prep for. You want to talk about a fun one. Jeremy Roach, longtime Duke guy, goes to Baylor, right? Could play them in the second round of the tournament. Mississippi State they were knocked out of the SEC tournament because they couldn't hit a 3 to save their lives. I know, I watched it. Thanks to them, Mizzou's now like a 6 seed.
31%, it looks like.
Yeah, and when they beat LSU, especially late, they shot the hell out of the ball. So it's really going to depend because, look, Baylor, 24% from 3. So it's not like we're showing so many bricks here. You can start doing putting up the affordable housing crisis. So that's a good thing, at least in that sense. But you have a very well-coached team because Baylor will always be that way versus a team that I think is more talented. So either one of those run up, that's going to be interesting, I think, for Duke. That's an interesting second-round matchup that also Duke does not have time to prepare for because, again, only 4 ACC teams. They haven't seen a lot of them. Oregon Liberty, that's another fun and I think a realistic upset pick because, again, the 5-12 is always popular. Oregon's a little too streaky for me. The other one here hiding is we could have the funniest timeline where Vanderbilt beats Alabama in football and basketball. And that is very doable. Alabama, when they want to, they could win the whole thing. They are so offensively gifted. But every year, usually it's like in the Sweet 16 or right before, they just go ice cold from 3 because Nate Oates, the math teacher, is playing analytics basketball. And none of his guys know what to do when the 3 stop falling. There are very few teams that can outshoot Alabama when they're hitting. Very, very few. But it will happen where
They
one of these games,
33s a game. That's got to be like the most in the country, right? Like,
but that's what they do. They do this every year.
No, I know. But
And then
it's like,
1 year, it depends. When they're hot, they might even make it all the way to the Final Four, but they will never win the tournament, at least in my opinion, because they are so 3 dependent. They just go ice cold, and their point guard's very, very good, so that he might be able to drag them out. But you get into the Sweet 16, you get into the Elite 8, where you start filtering out, teams you could just out rebound, out athletic, all those other things. Then they always poop the bed, and that's where I could see a Vanderbilt being very fun. St. Mary's never really plays anybody outside of Gonzaga, so they even if they knock out Vanderbilt, Vanderbilt loses to St. Mary's, Alabama goes to the Sweet 16. Congratulations, right? But if you play Vanderbilt in that second round, that's a very gettable upset. Again, the playbook, which you would think would help Bama, but in the same right here with Bama, they shoot so much. And they are not a pro team. There's a reason this works in the NBA when all those guys get paid millions because they can all hit 3s. These are college kids for a reason. I love them dearly, but Alabama every year will disappoint your bracket because they shoot way too much and then they go ice cold and they never adjust. But that's the analytics basketball that Nate Oates will give you. Did you know he was once a math teacher? They will tell you this year in the tournament if you did not. I guarantee.
Yeah, it's just like every time Ryan Williams for Alabama would catch a pass this year, they'd be like, "Do you guys know that he's 17 years old?" Yeah, we get it. He's a freshman in college. At 17, that's normal. I think there could be like the Akron talk. I think is interesting. Because like I said, you can't trust Arizona as much as like Caleb Love has experience in this. Like hard to believe as a freshman he made it to the Final Four. Like that's crazy to think that he's been in college that long. I also kind of like VCU to maybe go on a little run here to probably the Sweet 16. They played George Washington. I want to say, are they in the A10 maybe?
That's A10, yes.
Yeah, so they played them in the championship game. And I watched George Washington play George Mason maybe in like the quarterfinals. And George Washington was down like 10 points at halftime. They came out at halftime and was like leading by 10 within 5-6 minutes of the second half starting. And VCU beat that team. So I'm just going off of what I watched. I kind of like them to make a little run. Like I said, I could see Akron maybe making a little run here to the Sweet 16. This bracket is very interesting because it's like it could happen or it could not happen. But I think at the end of the day, I'll go through who I think is going to win this East. Is Duke. I think Duke wins it. But it could be a very fun to where like Akron is in the second weekend and VCU's in the second weekend. And I think it could be very fun, but it makes it easier for Duke, and that's why I'm going to pick Duke to win the East.
I'm not going to pick Duke to not only win the East.
Oh,
I predict them to win the championship.
Whoa, this guy.
I am not the biggest college basketball guy in the entire world, but Cooper Flagg has kind of reinstated a bit of a love for college basketball in me again. I love watching them play. I love watching reels of them in practice. Like, I don't know. I really like this Duke team. I think Cooper Flagg's really good. That white guard they have, I like him too. So it's I'm going to pick Duke to win the whole thing.
Shocker that you said white guard for Duke. That's
Concanipple appreciates your compliments.
That guy.
One way or the other. One way or the other.
Just sounds like a Duke name.
But we want another fun pick here, a little bit of chaos. I like Wisconsin, and I'll explain why here. I've already slandered Alabama enough where you would think that I am the biggest Auburn homer to be. But Wisconsin is a very offensive, fast and fun team. They made that tournament run. That was 4 straight games, and for them, and that was 4 days in a row playing teams and came out 3 out of 4 and were under and went into overtime to lose the Big Ten title game. That's impressive in its own right. And I think Tanji, which is a former Missouri transfer who transferred to Wisconsin, decided to tear it up. You switch the M and you turn it around, you get a W, and magically became really good. I guess that's how that works. But he's one of those guys that I hope he makes a name for himself because he's been so fantastic all year. Like all the college basketball heads are gonna be like, he's so good. But he can carry you over in a game when you need it. When 10 seconds left, who you give the ball to? He's the type of guy you give the ball to. And more impressively, he played terribly today. And the team around him stepped up. Duke in close games has been very questionable. They are very young. Tyrese Proctor is a very, very good guard, but in the clutch, he struggles. And I've never seen a man slip more in crucial moments than Cooper Flagg. That man
Zion slipped. He hurt his own shoe. I think it's Duke's shoe department.
It is. Yeah. I don't know if it's the shoe department because Zion.
It actually could be New Balance Athletics because I think he's a New Balance athlete, but he plays for Nike school. So when he's sitting on the bench, he's probably wearing New Balances compared to when he has to be in Nikes on the court. See, this is collusion at its finest right here.
This is why they didn't want NIL. There you go. This was the only reason.
Because New Balance is single-handedly on the precipice of destroying Duke's championship. That
was the big fear. Big basketball didn't want you to know. But when Duke has run up against some very good teams in close games, they have struggled to get through. And a lot of the one thing that's helped Duke a lot, especially in their resumes, they played a lot of these really, really good teams early in the year. That includes Auburn, who they beat. but they also lost to a Kansas. And in a lot of these close games, including their Clemson loss, Cooper Flag decides to slip like every single time. It's a little weird. But they struggle.
Flipping on purpose?
Maybe.
Is that what you're saying? Cooper
Maybe.
Flag flipping on purpose?
Big floor. Really in on it. But
he's purposely slipping, folks.
But I could see, especially even if Duke survives that top half of the bracket, I think it's very favorable for Wisconsin, where you can run into a team, any one of those teams that lower half you can beat. You have a star player. Star players can carry you through those games, and you can get into a rock fight with Duke and you can beat them as long as you're not doing what you had to do in the Big Ten tournament, which is play 4 straight games in 4 straight days. That's harder to do. You get those breaks in the tournament. So with me saying that, Montana's going to upset them, and then Duke's going to win the whole thing. So congratulations to the Blue. But
wow, that's going to make a very special family member in your family. Happy
family member in my family. Good one. Good there. There you go, Caleb. Right on.
There's they're that special of a person. I had to say
it. But no, that my spicy pick here is Wisconsin. They're fun.
So, but you picked Duke to make the Final Four?
Yeah, because I'm jinxing Wisconsin. That's how it goes. But no, Wisconsin makes the Final Four over Duke.
Really?
Okay.
Like that's what you're going to put on your official bracket?
Well, who knows? I'm looking through here making hot takes. You're welcome.
I like to go through each game and see. I pick the team who has the higher free throw percentage.
Oh, it's all about guard play and free throws.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a big one.
Exactly.
I think Wisconsin's good at shooting free throws. I want to say that they were maybe first in the Big Ten, first or second. All right, let's see here. Free throws. What does it say? 82%. Boom.
That's pretty good.
That's big time. Montana
should have done my research.
Montana ain't gonna know what hit him. All right, we will now move down to the last region of the bracket here, the Midwest region. Dun, dun, dun. Houston is the number 1 overall seed. I think it kind of shows actually kind of how deep the basketball season was to look at the 8-9 teams and who the 1 seeds will potentially play, because none of them are easy games, I would say. Because if Houston were to upset ISUE, yes, I said upset. You hear that? No, I'm just kidding. They would have to play Gonzaga or Georgia. Very interesting matchup there. Clemson, McNeese, 5-12. Everybody's going to probably count that game out to McNeese already. Purdue versus High Point. I don't care for Purdue. Illinois versus Texas Xavier. I could see the winner of Texas Xavier beating Illinois. Kentucky's in this. UCLA's in this. Tennessee's down there. I think this is probably the side of the bracket that will not get as much talk about, but could be very interesting in the end.
Houston got it good, and they should have.
Houston's good, dude.
Houston is very good, and this is very favorable. Gonzaga's down. Gonzaga, you can make the same argument I made with UConn earlier, which is they have the 4- and 5-star kids that haven't played up to it this year, which can be annoying. Georgia's very physical. I'm not in love with them, but the SEC was just so good that they're going to kind of sneak around. McNeese is fun. Will Wade is fun. And I want more TikToks of that student manager. So for all of our benefits, that's going to happen. Purdue, High Point, that's going to be another one that everyone talks about, which I was tempted to write in if I'm going to pick one of the two, because I'm actually looking at the 2 sides that'd be most likely, either that Maryland Grand Canyon, Purdue High Point. Those, I think, out of one of those games, the 13th seed is moving on. But I think Purdue might just do it. They've been sleepy enough to get through, but they're not that deep. This is not the title-winning Purdue that we had years ago. The other team that's really benefiting from this as we get to the bottom side, especially, will be Tennessee. Tennessee is very strong. I really like Sakai Ziegler, which I said when we were talking about the SEC preview, so I don't want to act like I was completely crapping on Tennessee. But they have that type of talent, type of team. Obviously, you can make the Rick Barnes jokes. Everyone will. But this is a very, very deep team that today lost to an even deeper team. That's why Florida is so dangerous. But I like Tennessee a lot. And they're a hard team to game plan against because they have so many different pieces that do very different things. Multiple guys can walk away and be your lead scorer, which is a lot of fun, or can take over a game. And that helps when your star player may be going down, having a little bit of a lump, or if they double team, etc. It's not just a one-man show at Tennessee. And I like that a lot. And I think they've got a very favorable draw, especially because if you want chaos, I don't like UCLA at all. I think Mick Cronin's a whiner. And that you were talking about Illinois being limpy, and whoever comes out of Xavier, Texas, even if Illinois goes through, they are streaky.
Yeah.
So I think Houston, like this also helps Houston. I think out of the two sides, though, I think Tennessee's got an even more favorable draw because if you run into a Kentucky, you've seen them, you've played them, you know them.
Yeah.
That is, again, something I really value, where Houston is going to hope for some chaos. And I think Houston-Gonzaga can be a very, very interesting game if they go through. Gonzaga has the talent. Can the talent figure it out? That's what Mark Few gets paid enough to figure out. But that makes it, I think, more challenging. And the same right as Purdue. Matt Painter recruits well. They have talent. They just haven't figured it out. And no better time to do it than now.
I think what helps Purdue this year compared to years past is they're actually they're led by the guard play, kind of like when they were when Edwards was there, and they were able to make that run years ago. So like Purdue making a run wouldn't shock me, because Braden Smith, I think, was Big Ten Player of the Year, and he kind of leads them. They're not led by the big man as much this year. And as I've stated many times, this tournament's all about guard play. And, they can kind of do some stuff. I mean, realistically, I think for me on the side of this bracket with the East and the Midwest, I think Houston wins this region. And I think when they play Duke in the Final Four, I think that is kind of the de facto championship game, in my opinion. Just based off of everything. Like, I really like Houston. They can make shots. They have guys that can make shots. They have veterans. They've been there. The guard play, the bigs. They play defense. I think they're the best defensive team in the country. Kelvin Sampson, I think, is kind of always the downfall with Houston. Because they're always there, but then it always feels like, they get to the Final Four and then they get blown out. But I think this year could maybe be Houston's year.
I'll go Tennessee. I like them. They're fun.
Tennessee.
They're deep. I can see Tennessee winning it all. Especially because, again, this is a bracket. This side of the bracket I do feel falls into like a 1-2 Elite Eight. Winner goes to the Final Four.
Yeah.
Where you'll have some upsets in the middle half, but like my question is, how many punches can Houston take? Where I think Tennessee has a very favorable route. Again, if they run into UCLA, let's say it goes in order, right? Let's say they play UCLA. I think UCLA is overrated. Again, when Mick Cronin started complaining about travel schedules, I know that means you're not that good. If that's the topic you bring up.
You try going from LA to Rutgers. You try it, Jerry.
Hey, he's complaining about seeing the Statue of Liberty.
You try.
What a first world problem.
You know what? Because when you're out in LA, you're looking at the beautiful sun and 75, and
it's on fire.
Ferris wheel out there, and that's what you're worried about, not about the Statue of Liberty.
Yeah, but you get to go see it. You know how many LA influencers go out to New York for a week? No problem. They can figure it out. But if that's your complaint,
they probably come back and they're like, "Oh, that city smells," and they have to walk everywhere. That city's gross. Maybe that's what he's thinking. Okay, New York versus LA. This has been a historical battle for years.
This guy's from Cincinnati.
Well, he's big time. He's big time swimming now.
Mick Cronin's a Midwestern dude complaining about travel schedules. Dude, everyone in the Midwest drives everywhere. What are we worried about traveling and complaining?
Look, he's used to going from cornfield to cornfield, playing somebody out in the yard in the peach basket. Okay, now he's got to travel cross country. See, you don't understand it.
I don't like it. I don't like that. With that in mind, I don't like UCLA as much. If they run into Kentucky, if that breaks that way, again, they've seen Kentucky, which makes it, I think, more of an easier matchup. And really would be a heavyweight, but that's the first punch I feel like they really would take. Whereas Houston, if you go Houston, Gonzaga, or Houston, then Purdue, that's two major hits, and that's right. That's back to back, and those are two very talented teams. to where Tennessee could get Houston after really running through a lot of hell to get there, where they're a little bit less unscathed and could beat the hell out of some teams when they get up there. So I'm really high on Tennessee, and I think this bracket favors them to beat out Houston.
Okay, so you're Tennessee. Trevor, who do you have winning the Midwest?
Caleb.
Yeah.
What region is Cincinnati in?
The Midwest.
Do they have to travel for these games?
Yeah, UCLA was going to I don't know where they start.
I understand, but they play in the same arena for their side of the bracket, the Midwest bracket.
Yeah. So you're going UCLA?
No, I'm going UCLA, baby.
This guy. Look, he gets it. I mean, they've gone on runs before when they weren't supposed to. Like, look, I mean, Jerry can sit here and hate. I think he's hating more on LA.
He's a New York guy.
Yeah, clearly.
Especially I've never seen either of them. Definitely more of a New York guy.
Clearly, you're a big New York guy.
Yeah, he's
somebody
one of those
somebody
Wall Street
commented.
guys.
Somebody commented, "Where is ND women's bracket?" That's what I have to say to that. I mean, it's not wrong. Historically, Notre Dame women's basketball is better than the men's. It's a fact. I didn't make the rules. Muffet did when she came here and built up the program. I prefer this shot better. It looks better. So Trevor, move your head over is what I'm saying.
Sorry.
There you go. Jeez, lounging over there.
I was leaning, dude.
All right, so I think my picks were MSU, St. John's, Duke, Houston. I think Houston wins the whole thing. I've done it for many, many years with Houston, and they always hurt me, but why not? I like pain.
You just never learn your lesson, do you,
I don't.
Caleb?
I love them so much. When I see their uniforms and the way they play, I love it. I love everything about it.
Yeah.
Trevor picked Duke. Shocker. Jerry, who did you pick to win the whole thing?
I'm going to throw Tennessee in there.
Whoa.
Rick Barnes.
Because I had MSU, UConn. That was the chaos pick. Wisconsin, Tennessee. And we've talked about how all year the SEC has been this dominant conference. They walk through, they have a very favorable run to get to the Final Four. And from there, they're going to play Wisconsin, Tennessee, or MSU, UConn. I think that to fit the narratives, because, as a guy who creates narratives for a living, that's what I do. Tennessee wins it all.
Tennessee.
Wow.
Well, they just got upset. Congratulations. You're welcome, volunteers.
No, I mean, I think it'll be interesting. One thing I can say that chaos is going to ensue in this tournament, and that's why we love it.
It always does, baby. That's
one shining moment. One shining moment. So, I mean, it's interesting because you're going to have it. I mean, what's funny about this whole thing is we sit here and we talk about this stuff and we act like I can't tell you. I've never watched a Lipscomb game. I've never watched Akron play a game of basketball. And it's like, I think Akron's a great team. They're going to win it all. You know what I mean? It's like we have no idea what the hell we're doing. Nobody does. So you're going to have all these people, and I'm prefacing that for people that watch this or going to watch this. I'm not an expert. Jerry kind of is an expert. Trevor stays quiet, but then picks Duke. So none of us are experts, but it's funny to sit here and argue this stuff or talk about it. I still think it's crazy that Robert Morris, one person, has played Alabama. That's not fair.
Well, remember a couple years ago when they played like 3-on-5.
That was the Colin Sexton year. Yeah. So this is just Alabama getting even.
Their own medicine. Yeah.
So it's not fair that Robert Morris, I feel bad for Robert Morris.
He's probably really good.
I may want to go join Robert. I may fly down to this game, suit up, and play for Robert Morris with him on his team. That's what I may do.
Takes away from his aura. Sorry, Caleb.
We may win that game because I can shoot a lot of threes and make them. So you think Alabama's hot? Watch me in the corner. I don't miss. Back in my day, they said the only thing that could get me was a shotgun. Okay.
Oh, dang.
You talk about the crime here. Okay, what's going on there?
No, that's the only thing that could stop. That's the only thing that could stop me. Is what I'm saying.
It was a shotgun.
Yeah, because I'd be fire.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I think
I remember them saying that.
Yeah, everybody did. I mean, it was all over.
Yeah, it was the talk of the town.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a fact. I mean, but no, it'll be interesting. I think it'll be fun. Clearly, you have these teams. I think people are like, oh, they're good, they're good, they're good. So one of them's going to get upset if that's either Duke or Auburn or Florida or probably Houston. Like something's going to happen, and we're not going to foresee it, and that's what makes us great.
Yeah, that's why I feel like picking sometimes is futile because it's just gonna March Madness is gonna do madness things, which is why I love it. And it's like the one time a year where I watch college basketball.
It's a good amount of chaos because there is no, oh my God, this team's just beating up on everyone. That's kind of what it felt like last year at UConn, where it's like, okay, who's going to play UConn in the championship game this year? That like you can't say that about Auburn. They just got beat literally a week ago. They've lost to top 25 teams, several of them, and they're the number 1 overall seed. Where this year there were people asking, and it was a fair question, if they were going to be the number 1 overall instead of they're number 1, everyone else kind of follows suit. So not only is it the top chaos, everything in the middle is going to be fun. You have a lot of teams with weaknesses, and of course, these are 18 to 22-year-olds. That is what makes this chaotic. Because what were you doing when you were 18 and 22? Not being consistent, that's for sure. So that's where the fun in this all drives through. It'll be a lot of It'll be very exciting, and it's an excuse for you on your Thursday to have a second screen. So
yeah,
second, third, fourth screen, dude. What are you talking about?
Hey, shout out to me working at a CBS station. No broadcast.
Yeah.
This guy's not even going to work. Not only did we figure out that he hates both big cities, hates LA, doesn't know much about New York, but really hates LA. Now we figured out that this guy's not going to work for 3 weeks.
You make the bold assumption I work every day.
I mean, do you work every day, Jerry?
Sure. My employer's listening. Yes, I do.
That's fine. I agree with that. All right. Anything else before we wrap this up? I think we did much better on time this week. We're looking at about an hour, over an hour. Not bad. Not bad.
Not bad at all.
We had some comments, which is good. I think we've had consistently more people watching, as I've figured out that it's actually on Facebook this week for the first time. Shocker that something went wrong, or I didn't figure it out fully. Any
you didn't
last
connect
thoughts?
to your neighbor's Wi-Fi?
No. So, quick story on that one. I did get the Wi-Fi extender, and I am now plugged into Ethernet.
Whoa!
Whoa!
Watch out. We went from, I don't even know what low we were, but we were low. And now we're like middle of the road. We're balling, like we think we're balling out of control, but we're actually not. But in my world, we're doing great.
We are doing amazing things.
You did a lot to bolster your resume right before the tournament. I'm proud of you.
Yeah, I mean, this is what I do. I maybe struggled, but I won my conference tournament.
There you go.
That's what I did.
So you're Michigan. You're a 5 seed. Congratulations.
No, don't ever lump me in with that place.
Yeah.
Don't ever lump me in with that school. Here's a comment. How do you?
Detour.
Can I show? I can show comments.
Wi-Fi to Bellagio Wi-Fi. That's facts.
Yeah. I mean, that's big.
That's a good point. That is big time.
I mean,
do you have a detour segment this week, Caleb?
I do not. I did not.
Dang it.
His Wi-Fi didn't detour, so we didn't detour either.
Yeah, I think we're good. We want, more plain path this week. Nothing crazy happened when I went to the gym. Didn't see anything out of the ordinary.
See the same lady?
Nope, did not see her. So I may have shamed her from ever going to that place again.
Yeah, that's probably.
But the question is, did she ever really go there in the first place? Because she just artificially got it done. I mean, that's the question.
That's true. Maybe she was like an advertisement for the gym. It was like, you can get this. This can happen to your butt if you work out here.
Yeah, like those terrible
they paid her like
commercials.
$100.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
If you want to look like me, do this.
Go to this gym.
Yeah, only this gym can help you get this look.
I think now our next step to get it's like if you watch this show, you'll have a butt that looks like, and then you need to get a BBL, Caleb.
That's the prophecy fulfilled.
Yeah, if you watch the show, your butt will increase in size just like Caleb's does.
I'm not. I mean, if this goes big time, I'm not counting it out.
Please, somebody save that. Please, somebody save that.
And I don't welch on bets, so if this becomes something that
no, you don't.
If this is something that becomes worldwide, then I will.
Yeah, Please, I need it.
But time will tell. All right, I think that's going to wrap it up for show 2, live show 2, bracket breakdown. I again went with the Houston Cougars, big Cougar fan. Trevor went with the Blue Devils in Duke.
Yes, sir.
Jerry went with the Tennessee Volunteers. We'll see. I mean,
We'll probably all be wrong.
yeah. When we talk next Sunday, we'll be like brackets like totally busted because it goes from my brackets busted to my bracket's definitely busted because the team I had winning the championship lost already.
Yep.
So there's different levels to it.
We forgot to check
free
free
throw
throw
percentage.
percentage.
How much money did I lose in the bracket pool? Oh my god! If this team wins out that I had in my Elite Eight, I could make $5.
Yeah, you're like, if this one of my 8 teams makes it, we're holding on. But time will tell.
This is
All
my
right,
final
we-
thought. Caleb, give me one thing, and
What?
because I'll guess under a minute 15. All right, is the fact that these tournament brackets have like the scoring system now to determine who has like the best bracket. I think has been great for office pools. Because even if your champion gets knocked out, you get to root on some weird pick you made, half thinking you through, and you're like, oh my God, I still have a chance to win $5. Oh, wait, never mind. The guy who set it up somehow is in the lead. It's amazing.
Yeah.
I'm very pro the point system. I think ESPN does it. It's very fun, very cool. So there you go. ESPN sponsor us, please. Put us next to Pat
That would be
McAfee.
awesome.
So that's what we
Wow.
figured out. Jerry hates LA, loves ESPN. We're just figuring he's opening
Bristol,
up,
Connecticut. That's where you need to be.
He's opening up.
Yeah.
He's opened up like a can of those snakes where just like they go everywhere. Like he's every week he's like giving us he's like peeling back the book.
Does Bristol, Connecticut have a high crime rate?
If it doesn't, you can't go. I doubt it.
That's the
I
problem.
don't think so because I don't think there's much in Bristol, Connecticut. As far as I know from like talent, I think they don't even live in Bristol. They like drive like Dan Patrick, they live in Milford, which is like 45 minutes from. So I think they all live in
And
suburbs
that has a
around
high
Bristol.
crime rate.
Maybe all the murderous takes that happen at ESPN keeps the crime rate high.
Yeah,
There you
that's
go.
true.
There you go.
Jerry, I think you should go around St. Louis, asking people what, and you know where you should go. The bad side of town, baby. Get it all on camera, dude. Who do you think is gonna win the March Madness?
Hey,
tournament?
SIU Edwardsville, baby, all the way through.
Yeah.
There you go. Hometown team. Go Cougars. There you go. I think it's Cougars. They might be the Cougars as well.
This guy knows
Dang
this guy knows how to work the room. Don't go in that neighborhood and say I think it might be the Cougars. All right, that's going to do it for this week's show. We will be back next Sunday at 7, trying to do weekly Sundays at 7. We'll see what happens in the week of sports, talk about it. Probably will just be a bunch of March Madness stuff about crazy games we've watched and more breakdown moving in. We may reset our brackets after that. A little second chance over here. I'm all about second chances in the world.
Or who knows? Maybe Aaron Rodgers will go somewhere.
Maybe or maybe not. We could probably maybe have the same graphic that we use this week for next week. That would be
It's true. Yeah.
But I may add the photo of him on the beach listening to our show. That's what I'm
Yeah.
But that's going to do it. Thanks for watching.
Awesome. See you guys.